I'm here with the guys from Rivers of Nile on the last day of the tour, and it's a scorcher in Toronto. You guys brought the nice weather with you. Now that the tour is almost over, there's still this one last show. Can you guys give me a little bit of a recap on how this tour went for you guys?
It went well. It was a good tour. Nothing real tragic. Most of the shows were crushing, and everything went pretty well. I don't really nothing to gripe about. Yeah, it was a great tour.
Everything worked.
Everything worked. Yeah.
And that's all you can expect.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing this tour on the back of a new record, self-titled Rivers of Nile. How's the response been from fans on this tour run to the new tracks? And overall, how do you feel the response to the album has been?
It's been really positive. I think, when you play any new material live, there's just like a little, like for the first couple times at least, or first tour or so, like you'll have people just kind of checking out the new stuff as you play it live, and instead of just like jumping right in the pit. But that's like kind of something we expect. But the response has been really good to all the new stuff. And it blends in really well with stuff, the existing material as well.
Did the success of the work impact in any way the way you guys looked at this album, or how you guys would define this album as being successful?
I think the work was, it was a success in most metrics that that are meaningful. But I think we looked at what aspects of that. Maybe we looked at aspects of it that maybe people didn't like as much, or maybe we kind of responded to more of what we could tell that people thought was negative about it, and so I think some of the new material is sort of that, sort of a response in a way where it's like less focused on the contemplative, slower proggy stuff, and more focused on heaviness and blast beats and all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean we love the work and fully stand behind that record and the choices we made. But it felt like we did that, and it's the kind of thing that will stand on its own. And certainly we took lessons from that time, and musically and creatively, that will carry forward. But I think it was a strange record to make, and it was a strange time because it was a very COVID influenced thing, and this one feels like a little more like, we can feel like we stretched our legs a little bit more, had a little more fun, and that's so. Yeah, I think every record that we make is a response to the last one in positive or negative ways. So yeah.
I've seen some comments online, fans referring to this album as your black album, if you will. Do you see the possibility of that, or is there any interest in having that kind of conversation at all?
Yeah. I mean, it's I think we all saw a couple of parallels with the story of that band, and like they put out 4 records. Like one's like a real early kind of rough around the edges thing, and then sharpened their sound up a little bit on the next one. They made something that's like considered like a big classic, and then they started getting a little like weirder and long-winded, longer songs, and then for their 5th record they just like tightened the whole thing up and wrote the best songs that they could, and so we started seeing all those parallels, and and as well. And we're like, well, what if we make that a similar goal? Like, let's take the elements that make Rivers of Nihil what it is, and just completely cut the fat, tighten it up, and just write, put as many bangers on the thing as we can.
For me, one of the things that I notice in terms of the comparisons between the two is that this album is perhaps the Rivers of Nihil album that's a little bit easier to digest, especially if you've never heard the band before. Coming in firsthand, you play this album plays differently. It has a little bit more of an accessibility to it sound-wise. Was that by design, or is that just something that kind of happened in the creative process for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was intentional. Like, I think when we started writing this record, we were pretty like focused as far as like we do want these songs to be accessible, listenable metal songs, and we want them to be digestible, and we even went so far as to limit just being like, hey, like 6-minute songs are not going to be the standard on this thing. Like I want people to like listen to maybe something that's 4.5 minutes and has a great hook, and then you want to listen to it again.
Replay value.
Yeah, like get the replay value up, and it's not just because like, and it's not like, I think people could take us saying that as being very cynical or cynically and be like, oh, they're sold out or they're trying to write for the radio, but it's like, the answer to that is like kind of, yeah, but at the same time it's like, well, it's not like that's not a valid artistic approach either. Like I think that's especially for a band that's been, we're a death metal band at our very core, and it is a challenge for us to write catchy, brief songs that are still packed with all kinds of wild instrumentation and stuff like that. So I think that's the challenge there. It's not like I think people talk about accessibility and radio friendliness like it's such an easy thing to come by, and it's tough. It's a hard thing to restrain yourself when you have so many different elements to add to your music.
And at the end of the day, you also don't want to completely break away from your DNA, and you want to still have some of what Rivers of Nihil is. Is that also part of the recipe, if you will, for this record, bringing in Rivers of Nihil DNA into the sound, but still giving yourselves enough freedom to be who you want to be going forward?
Yeah, I think that on this record in particular, being that we've released 4 albums, now, I think for the first time, since I'm, mostly the music guy, less so, or not involved with the lyrics or anything, but musically speaking, for the first time, I really looked back at our 4 records and tried to be as objective as possible and say, like, hey, what are we good at? Like, what is this band good at, both on record and live, and what aren't we good at? And trying to look at the things that we are good at and make them even stronger. And additionally, like, on this record, we knew we were going to be playing this stuff live, whereas like on the work, when we were making that record, it was a time when we weren't sure that there were even going to be shows again, which I think might be a reason why that album ended up turning out the way that it did. But in this record in particular, just kind of looking back on our discography and almost like using ourselves as an influence on this new material was really helpful to me when we were putting these songs together, just because, yeah, it was cool to be able to look back and say, like, okay, like, we have all these, 41 songs or whatever on our first 4 records. Like, what are the high points? Like, what are the songs that really lock in live? Which ones don't? Like, how can we take that information and make an even more powerful version of it? And I think that was kind of my mantra when I was putting the music together for this one.
When superhero groups are putting themselves together, like the Avengers, for example, when they're bringing Spider-Man, they all go through a meeting to decide, is this good for the group? So when you guys were looking at your own Spider-Man, in this case Andy, coming into the mix, what did you look at him as the perfect attributes that he could add to push Rivers of Nihil in that direction that you guys wanted to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just made sense to work with Andy for us, just because, first of all, like we grew up in the same local scene as him, and he's been on board with Rivers of Nile as an entity since the very beginning. Like he understands where we're coming from, and and through his projects, through that and his musical output over the years, that we've shared demos and talked about things, and we've even gone to the like Black Crown and us, would go to the same studio to record our albums and everything. It's all very like in the family anyway.
The first show was with us.
Yeah, the Black Crown's first show was with Rivers of Nile too. Like, so it's just, yeah, to say that he's just already a member of the family is just, like, that's kind of, so it's a no-brainer. We all know, and like we know what he's capable of musically, and so when it comes time to write our music, with him in the context, included in the context, it's I think it just, we were able to keep in mind that he can deliver big hooks, with his voice, and he has a really like a riffing style that sticks out, and we didn't want to like shove him to the side, because like everybody wants to see Spider-Man on the big screen with Captain America, so why not let him do his thing? Like I've always been like a big advocate in music, to where it's like, if you have this group of dudes, let them exert maximum potential. So if we had Andy join the band and just like kind of like was like, don't sing so much because it'll sound like Black Crown Initiate or whatever, like that cheapens it to me. I like, why not use the maximum potential?
Basically using everybody to their best abilities, which then brings obviously the band all the way up. One last question for you guys. We've talked a lot about the sound, but let's just touch on the vocals a little bit. Was this album more challenging from a musical standpoint, or do you feel like it was more challenging getting the right vocal performances to match the vibes that you guys had created musically?
Well, from what I mean, Brody and Andy mostly put a lot of the musical stuff together, and it seemed like it went pretty breezy, right?
Yeah, I feel like this album came together once we started. The first song we wrote was the Suborbital Blues, and I think once we finished that song, we had a pretty clear picture of where we wanted to go with the rest of the album musically, and it was really after that just a matter of figuring out how to incorporate all three voices over top of the music.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I didn't really have a problem picturing what vocals were gonna fit once we had good solid demos, and I could listen to those and meditate on how I felt like the vocals were gonna be presented. Like, it was super easy, like, because I just in the past, like, so sort of not having access to somebody who can really like deliver a really high like soaring vocal hook has kind of felt like, it's like, well, now I gotta kind of skirt around that and find a different way to make this catchy. And now that like I just like, I got guys in the band who can combine, just sing just about anything. It actually is a lot easier. We have It's easier to paint a landscape when you have every color available to you, and on this record we had all of the paints that we to choose from, and in previous ones, not to say that we didn't, but we had maybe a slightly more selective color palette,
And maybe a canvas as well.
Yeah, right.
All right, guys, thank you very much for your time today. All the best with the last show of this tour, and all the best with everything that you guys do. I love the new record. For me, definitely is your Black album. So thank you very much for the time today, and have fun.
Thank you,
Thanks.
man.